One night I was out at the bar with my wife. Some of my friends were with me and they got a little bit too drunk and started saying my wife was pretty hot. And I had to agree with them too, she is a smoke show. But they kept on going, pressing the issue all night, and then they started flirting with her. And of course, you know my wife, she can't tell when people are flirting with her. And then when I went up to talk to her, they pantsed me right in front of her. And then one of my friends threw me up in the air by my legs, and the other friend came out of nowhere and proceeded to Dudley Boys 3D me through the bar table. So imagine me laying on the ground, ass out, broken table, and at that very moment, they proceeded to make fun of how small my dick was right in front of my wife. And honestly, I was on the ground and I wasn't even mad. All I was thinking of is, that was some great defense they played. And then they started playing some offense. They looked at me on the ground, kicked me in the gut one time, and started making out with my wife. And I was like, damn, great defense into great offense. And then I thought of an idea. I made top 10 defensive players of all time, and now they're playing some good offense. What if I combined those lists and made the top 10 greatest seasons in NFL history? And if you're wondering why in these clips I'm about to show you, I'm wearing 3 different outfits, fuck you. It might be because I was lazy and I just spliced these clips together, but you wouldn't know that. The only thing you know is my friend made out with my wife. With that being said, this is top 10 seasons in NFL history. Whoa! If you don't want Marvin Harrison to break into your house and shoot you in the head, like, comment, subscribe, and let's get into this video. Number 10, 2021 Cooper Kupp. If you wanted to say this is the greatest modern day wide receiver season of all time, I agree with you here. Besides being gritty, hardworking, and a guy you would like to date your daughter, and simply a guy you would just trust with your girlfriend's purse, and simply being not a Nick, Cooper Kupp in 2021 had 191 targets, 145 receptions, 1,947 receiving yards, which is top 2 all time, becoming the second wide receiver to crack the 1,900 mark on 16 touchdowns and average 114.5 yards per game. This season, he was first team All-Pro and Offensive Player of the Year. He dominated the regular season like no other, and him and Matthew Stafford led the Rams to a 12-5 record, winning the NFC West. In the first round, they had faced their division rivals, the Arizona Cardinals. Cooper Kupp in the first playoff game went for 5 receptions, 61 yards, and 1 touchdown, ultimately leading the Rams to a win, 34-11, to advance to the divisional round against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And this is where the legend of Cooper Kupp in 2021 really started. Against Tampa Bay, Cooper Kupp would go for 9 receptions for 183 yards and 1 touchdown, with his longest reception being 70 yards, to lead the Los Angeles Rams in a 30-27 win. And then it came to the conference championship, and you already know, a white boy in motion stays in motion, and Cooper Kupp's no exception. Cooper Kupp on 11 receptions had 142 receiving yards and 2 receiving touchdowns, to lead the Rams to a 20-17 victory over the San Francisco 49ers to go to the Super Bowl. And then on the biggest stage of them all, guess who showed up? Cooper Kupp once again. He'd go for 8 receptions, 92 receiving yards, 2 touchdowns, to win Super Bowl MVP and to bring the Rams their second Super Bowl in franchise history. Counting postseason, this is the most receiving yards in a single season. His postseason dominance was insane this year. His regular season dominance was insane. I got it as the second greatest wide receiver season of all time, if you ask me. So with that being said, number 10, 2021 Cooper Kupp. Number 9, 1984 Dan Marino. This is the classic gold standard quarterback season. Really until 2004, where a certain somebody we'll see upcoming on the list really broke it. This was the greatest quarterback season of all time, and some people will still argue to you to this day that this is still the greatest quarterback regular season ever. And I might even argue that depending on the day. But what Dan Marino did in 1984 was simply ridiculous. This is the greatest era-adjusted season of all time. Dan Marino passed for 5,084 passing yards, becoming the first quarterback ever to hit the 5,000 yard mark. The nearest quarterback was under 4,000. He had 48 passing touchdowns. That broke the all-time regular season record by 12 touchdowns. The league average quarterback touchdown passes per year was about 20 in the 80s. He led the league in net yards attempt and adjusted net yards attempt, which is insane on the crazy volume he had back then. In era adjusted, it's approximately 67 touchdown passes in a season. This is like Mahomes throwing for 67 touchdown passes and throwing for like 7,000 passing yards. It broke all the norms in an NFL season. That's why it was seen as the greatest for such a long time. With that being said, Dan Marino led the Miami Dolphins to a 14-2 record. They'd beat the Seattle Seahawks in the divisional round, where Marino went for 262 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. Then in the conference championship, they beat the Pittsburgh Steelers 28-45, and Dan Marino would go 21 for 32, 421 yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 interceptions on a 135.4 rating to lead the Dolphins to the Super Bowl. In the Super Bowl, they got absolutely routed, whatever you want to call it, against the San Francisco 49ers, losing 38-16. And Marino went 29 for 50, 318 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions on a 66.9 rating. This is pure just all-time great regular season dominance. This is probably the greatest regular season quarterback season of all time. And objectively, it would probably make sense why it would be number one. So that carries it to this spot. It's such an outlier for quarterback seasons in the 1980s that it gets this spot alone based on the regular season. Number 8, 2004 Peyton Manning. This is probably the greatest regular season quarterback season of all time. While 2013 Peyton Manning had the volume, 2004 Manning had the volume plus efficiency. This is personally for me the greatest regular season a quarterback has ever had in NFL history. On almost 200 less attempts, Peyton Manning had 6 less touchdowns in his 2013 season. He also broke Dan Marino's previous record for passing touchdowns in a season. Peyton Manning on a 67% completion percentage, had 4,557 passing yards, 49 touchdowns, had a touchdown percentage of 9.9%, 10 interceptions, averaged 9.2 yards an attempt, had a passer rating of 121.1, led the league in net yards an attempt at 8.74, and led the league in adjusted net yards an attempt at 9.78. Simply put, probably the most efficient season in NFL history. It had the volume of 2007 Tom Brady and had the efficiency of 2011 Aaron Rodgers. And with the touchdown rate of 9.9%, that literally means almost 1 out of every 10 passes was a touchdown. Had an offensive DVOA of 56%, and if you project this to the modern day and adjust it for era, this is about another 60 touchdown pass season, with better efficiency than 1984 Dan Marino. With that being said, of course 2004 Peyton Manning was first team All-Pro, won MVP, won Offensive Player of the Year, led the Colts to a 12-4 record, and in their first wildcard round against the Denver Broncos, they'd win 24-49. Peyton Manning looked like he was going to carry his dominance into the playoffs, where he went 27 for 33, 458 yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception, on a 145.7 passer rating, and looked like he had a shot at the Super Bowl. And then the dumbass, cheating ass, horrible city, unfaithful coach, child-kissing quarterback New England Patriots came to town, and they had beat the Indianapolis Colts 20-3. And this would mark Peyton Manning's biggest playoff failures. This team was so dominant in the regular season, he had all the weapons on offense, and he could only muster up going 27 for 42, 238 yards, 0 touchdowns, 1 interception, and he fumbled the ball once on a 69.3 rating. Even with that being said, just like I was saying for Dan Marino, how it's probably the greatest regular season you'll ever see from a quarterback, and that alone brings it this high on the list. Number 7, 1986 Lawrence Taylor. Whoa, old heads. I get that he won MVP. I get he's the last defensive player to win MVP, but does MVP automatically mean you're better than someone who didn't win MVP? That's like saying 2023 Lamar Jackson is better than 2009 Drew Brees. Okay, that discussion's over. Let's get into how great 1986 Lawrence Taylor was. Oh, and by the way, did you know he's a sex offender? In 1986, Lawrence Taylor threw 16 games, forced 2 forced fumbles, had 20.5 sacks, and since combined tackles weren't tracked, tackles for a loss weren't tracked, and basically nothing but sacks were tracked, that's basically fucking it. You feel me, my nigga? He was first team All-Pro, he won MVP, and he won Defensive Player of the Year, making him the second and the last defensive player to win the award. The New York Giants would also win the Super Bowl this year, even though Lawrence Taylor wouldn't have a single sack all postseason. But simply put, this is one of the most dominant seasons of all time. I'm making it fast because there's not too much stats here or advanced metrics to really talk about here. But yes, number 7 is 1986 Lawrence Taylor. Number 6, 1987 Reggie White. There's no NFL player in almost NFL history that is greater than 1987 Reggie White, and that includes Lawrence Taylor. This is probably the most efficient pass rushing season of all time. In 1987, Reggie White had 21 sacks in 12 games. He had 80 tackles in 12 games. He averaged 1.7 sack per game. In over a 16-game span, this is a 28 sack season. This is one of the highest sack rates ever recorded. Modern elite pass rushers average 1 sack a game in a good year, and he would have over 100 plus pressures this year, and would have a 25% pass rush win rate. He faced constant double teams, constant chips. He was moved to the defensive tackle position at times, and had an AV of 21 in 12 games, one of the highest per game values ever. And if you take into context, there's fewer pass attempts in the modern day in 1987, more run heavy offense, less spread formation. Simply put, there's fewer opportunities to rush the passer. That makes his sack rate even more insane. Now, like I said with Lawrence Taylor, there's not a lot of advanced stats, as in combined tackles, tackles for a loss. All these stats I said are just assumed, and yes, I did assume Reggie White's and not Lawrence Taylor's, because Reggie White's not a sex offender. But with that being said, the second greatest defensive season in NFL history is 1987 Reggie White. Number 5, 1998 Terrell Davis. This is the greatest running back season in NFL history, and it doesn't get talked about enough, because this dude made the Hall of Fame and he only played 6 years in the NFL, because his run from 97 and and 98 were legendary. In 1998, Terrell Davis had 392 attempts for 2,008 rushing yards, 21 rushing touchdowns, averaged 5.1 yards an attempt, and averaged 125 rushing yards a game. This year he'd be first team All-Pro, he'd win MVP, and he'd win Offensive Player of the Year. But his regular season was great, but it's nothing compared to what he did in the postseason. The Broncos got a first round bye, and they had beat the Miami Dolphins in the divisional round, and Terrell Davis would put on a show. On 21 attempts, he went for 199 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns, and having a 62-yard rush, absolutely dominating the game, having over half of their offensive yards that game to send the Broncos to the conference championship. And in the conference championship, everything was the same. On 32 attempts, Terrell Davis would have 167 rushing yards, 1 touchdown, his longest run being a 31-yard run, and again, almost having over half of the offensive yards to lead the Denver Broncos in a win against the New York Giants 23-10. And then in the Super Bowl, on schedule again, Terrell Davis dominated. Terrell Davis went for 25 attempts, 102 yards, 0 touchdowns, 2 receptions, and 50 receiving yards to win Super Bowl MVP and close out his legendary 1998 season. Regular season wise, this is one of the 5 to 10 greatest running back seasons of all time. I'd have it in my top 5. Postseason wise, it's not even close. This is the greatest running back postseason ever. He put the team on his back. He had 500 rushing yards in 3 games, multiple 2+ touchdown games. In my opinion, in totality, this is the greatest running back season of all time. Number 4, 2022 Patrick Mahomes. The Kansas City Chiefs this year lost Tyreek Hill. Their wide receiver 1 was Juju Smith-Schuster. Their top receiving threat was a 32-year-old Travis Kelce. Patrick Mahomes had an elite regular season, going 14-3, having the most yards in a season, leading the league in passing yards at 5,250, which is top 3 all time, having a 67% completion percentage, 41 passing touchdowns, 12 interceptions, averaged 308 passing yards a game, had a QBR of 79, and went first team All-Pro, MVP, and placed second for Offensive Player of the Year. Now, while his regular season is a top 10 quarterback season of all time, it's the postseason which matters most. Without a real number 1 option, without a running game, without a 1,000-yard rusher, the Chiefs had the number 1 seed, Patrick Mahomes had a sprained ankle, and they were still undeniable. Against the Jacksonville Jaguars, the Chiefs won 27-20. Patrick Mahomes with 22 for 30, 195 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions on a 112.5 passer rating to send his team to the conference championship, where they had faced the Cincinnati Bengals. The Chiefs would win 23-20. Patrick Mahomes would go 29 for 43, 326 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 interception on a 105.4 passer rating. This would send him to the Super Bowl against the Philadelphia Eagles, where the Chiefs would win once again 38-35. In this game, Patrick Mahomes went 21 for 27, 182 yards, 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 131.8 passer rating, and a Super Bowl MVP. All in all, bar for bar, pound for pound, in totality, if you take playoffs plus regular season, I have it at number 4. Number 3, 2014 JJ Watt. This is the greatest peak from a defensive player in NFL history. JJ Watt could do everything this season. He was the best pass rusher in the league, had one of the greatest pass rushing seasons of all time. He had the second most tackles for a loss in NFL history, and to go with that, he had the playmaking skills of Deion Sanders this year. We have not seen that kind of performance out of any defensive lineman in NFL history. That's how uncanny this 2014 season was for JJ Watt. In 2014, JJ Watt played 16 games. He had 1 interception for an 80-yard pick six. He had 10 passes defended, which is more than Lawrence Taylor, who played the linebacker position, caused 4 forced fumbles, caused 5 turnovers in total, had 1 fumble return touchdown, had 20.5 sacks, 78 combined tackles, 59 solo tackles, and 29 tackles for a loss, which is the second most in an NFL season. And not to mention, on the offensive side of the football, he would also have 3 receiving touchdowns. That's what I mean when I say he was as dynamic as 1994 Deion Sanders. In total, JJ Watt forced 5 turnovers, had 5 total touchdowns, had 20.5 sacks, and had the record for the most quarterback hits in an NFL season at 51. Had the second most tackles for a loss in NFL history, and had 10 passes defended as a defensive end. No defensive lineman has done more in an NFL season than JJ Watt in 2014. He had one of the highest total pressures ever recorded at 120. He had a pass rush win rate of 30%, which is equivalent to Myles Garrett winning 1 out of every 3 rushes. Pressure rate of 20%. He had a 99 Pro Football Focus grade this year, and he was the closest defensive player since Lawrence Taylor to winning the MVP award. Simply put, at all phases of the game of football, JJ Watt dominated, and it's just ridiculous. I don't think another season will come close to this that we'll see in the future. The closest thing I've seen was Myles Garrett, but I don't think it touches 2014 JJ Watt. But with that being said, the greatest defensive season of all time is 2014 JJ Watt. Number 2, 1987 Jerry Rice. There's nothing like 1987 Jerry Rice. In 1987, it was a lockout-shortened season, and Jerry Rice would have his magnum opus in his third season of his NFL career. On 65 receptions, this dude had 22 receiving touchdowns. That is a touchdown reception once in every 3 receptions. He'd go for 1,078 yards, averaging 89.8 yards a game, 9.6 yards a target, and was first-team All-Pro, Offensive Player of the Year, and should have won the MVP, but lost to John Elway, who threw 19 touchdowns to 12 interceptions. He had less touchdown passes than Jerry Rice had receiving touchdowns. Now, I know I've been weighing postseason play a lot, but this is simply just the greatest regular season of all time. And I know I'm being hypocritical of all the shit I just said, but 1987 Jerry Rice is ridiculous. If this was a modern-day 17-game span, Jerry Rice would have 31 receiving touchdowns. He averaged 22.4 yards per catch. He had over 2 touchdowns in 6+ games. And against the Atlanta Falcons this year, he went for 13 catches, 225 yards, and 5 receiving touchdowns. The greatest wide receiver game in NFL history. And let me read off his stats if it was a modern-day NFL context. Jerry Rice would have 1,900 receiving yards, 31 receiving touchdowns, on 22.4 yards per catch, on only 100 receptions. And his playoff dominance might not be as good as the previous guys I mentioned, but fuck it, this is my list. So I believe that 1987 Jerry Rice is the greatest offensive season of all time. After one guy, 1989 Joe Montana. Now, while quarterbacks have greater regular season dominance than 1989 Joe Montana, there is not a single quarterback that comes close to this postseason, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Joe Montana in 1989 led the 49ers to 11-2 record when he started, had a 70% completion percentage for 3,521 yards, 26 passing touchdowns, 8 interceptions, averaged 9.1 yards an attempt, 270 passing yards a game, had a 112.4 passer rating, led the league in net yards an attempt and adjusted net yards an attempt. He was first team All-Pro, MVP, and took home the Offensive Player of the Year award. He led the league in passer rating, he led the league in completion percentage. While this is great and probably a top 15 quarterback season of all time, not a single quarterback in NFL history comes close to this postseason. In 1989, the 49ers were the number 1 seed in the NFC, won the NFC West, and got the first round bye. In the divisional round, they had played the Minnesota Vikings, where they had won 41-13. Joe Montana went 17 for 24, 241 yards, 4 touchdowns, 0 interceptions on a 142.5 passer rating. And then in the conference championship against the Los Angeles Rams, the San Francisco 49ers would beat the Los Angeles Rams 30-3. Joe Montana went 26 for 30, 262 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions on a 125.3 passer rating. Believe it or not, he went 26 for 30, only having 4 incompletions and had 2 touchdown passes, and this is his worst game of the postseason. And arguably the greatest Super Bowl performance of all time, the 49ers would beat the Denver Broncos 55-10, and Joe Montana would go 22 for 29, only having 7 incompletions for 297 yards, 5 passing touchdowns, 0 interceptions on a 147.6 passer rating. Absolutely uncanny. He could have had 6 or 7 passing touchdowns if they didn't take him out. In 3 games, this dude had a 78% completion percentage, going 65 for 83, 800 passing yards, 11 touchdown passes, to 0 interceptions on a blistering 146.4 passer rating. And he had a touchdown percentage of 13.3. 1 out of every 7 pass was a touchdown pass. It doesn't get better than this as a quarterback. In my opinion, I value playoff dominance. I value postseason dominance. And while this is a top 15 regular season and he was very efficient, this is by far and away the greatest postseason played in NFL history. This is the perfect game after game after game. And that's why for me, it's the greatest season in NFL history. Well, with that being said, comment down below, like and subscribe, and I'll catch y'all boys later. Peace.